actually say anything of import.
Okay. Okay. Other Reddit thing, I was talking to another friend who's in OpenJS, and they are also very interested in the sieves replacement. So this is good timing.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, the idea was to build something everybody could use. You know, because I was like, hey, what we need for Kubernetes is actually fairly generalizable, and not harder to make it generalized. I mean, they may need to add things to it, but it was designed to make that possible. So the okay, so welcome everybody to the mentoring meetings for SIG contributor experience in Kubernetes. We are subject to the CNCF code of conduct, so be nice. This meeting, as usual, is being recorded and will eventually be available on Kubernetes YouTube. And with that said, we don't actually have anything on the agenda at this point. So I'm just going to open this up for people. We were just discussing the completion of the LFX, which is the new name of Community Bridge, although it's confusing because LFX is a site that has a lot of things other than internships, which finishes this week. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's LFX Bridge, like Go Bridge and some
Yeah.
other things. They're
Okay.
using to refer to it as the actual mentorship part.
There will be additional cycles for this. And we still have money in the bank for Kubernetes. I think we have like $18,000 to spend on internships for really whatever we want it for. So we might want to give some thought, or better yet, put out a call to the SIG leads to see if people have things that would work for an internship. I've been working with the LFX contractors to make it a better platform for managing internships. I don't know how many of those improvements have already been made, but it should be advancing so that the platform itself is no longer an obstacle. And in addition, I don't know where we are on GSOC schedule.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head either. I think Ihor chimed in 2 weeks ago saying that they would have more of a timeline on that soonish. So maybe, come early February.
Yeah, because if we could actually make those two coincide, that would be really nice, because then we only need to hit up the leads once to figure out internships. And then, decide which organization applies better to the kind of internship they're talking about. I mean, the nice thing, LFX, I think is still running on a 4-quarter basis, which is nice if you have people, potential interns who are not on a northern hemisphere summer cycle.
Mm-hmm.
What is so? Yeah, because I was wondering whether or not we'd even applied for Google Summer Code.
Yeah, I don't. It hasn't come up yet.
Okay. Usually there's a schedule somewhere, but usually it's okay. No, we can't even apply yet. We can't apply for 2 weeks. So
okay. Yeah, I thought it was like February-ish timeline.
Okay, but it does mean
we should start poking the lead soon.
Yeah, because with the way GSOC works, we want to know that people actually have potential internship opportunities and how many before we get to the point of applying for GSOC. So, okay. Okay, so I can take responsibility for that since I seem to be the current de facto leader of mentorships while Marky is still unable to spend a lot of time in Kubernetes.
If you want to chat more about that and like sending stuff to the leads, like
Yeah.
let me know. I'm happy to sync later. I actually have a couple ideas on different teams and different ideas that we could already get going with.
Okay, yeah, so let's chat about that. Okay.
If you want, do you want to do that now or just punt it to later?
Let's make sure we don't have anything else because we have Mars and Steven on here. Okay. So before Bob and I get into the weeds on GSOC LFX internship opportunities, do y'all have stuff on what you've been working on?
Just a little bit of a progress on the NCW material. Got 1 and 2 a rough cut, and I've still got the NCW 3 just to see where the material from the NCW 2 stuff was at, and I think the plan was to get something, some initial reviews just to see where a rough direction is going before we put like too much more into it.
Okay, so a rough cut of what?
Just documentation per se. So before we get to trying to do any sort of like videos or any of that sort of stuff, it's just trying to get some feedback on that. Hopefully in about another 2 weeks should be able to get my thing done within that period.
Okay. You want to put a link to that in the notes so that the rest of us can actually look at it and supply feedback?
Yeah, I'll see if I can track down the links. It's some GitHub. Sorry, it's some GitLab II branches that we've got some stuff in at the moment that we're working on. So I'll track down those links.
Cool. Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Okay, Mars?
Yes, sorry, my Zoom has been crashing from time to time. I don't know what's happening. Yeah, I did push a very draft, or maybe first draft of the video guide.
Okay.
I will probably update it later. I just don't want to keep people pending or waiting for me. I will still need to add OBS guide and screenshots for people who would like to have some more advanced features, advanced video control, or if someone wants to record session with 2 or 3 participants, maybe I think you can do it in OBS as well. Should be possible. I'm not sure how easy, but
yeah, I don't know. When we did that for KubeCon, we just did a Zoom call. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll say, there are, feel free if you want, there's a lot of good like video tutorials on OBS out there. I think they might be more focused on Streamlabs than OBS directly, but like if you'd prefer just to link to those instead of potentially, you know, producing your own content, like go for it.
Okay, thank you. I did make some screenshots, but yeah, it's a lot of extra work, which is repeating. I don't know. It's easier to link to someone else.
Yeah,
definitely.
Linking is fun.
Okay, I might do that.
And we actually do have a couple. Let's see. Oh no, never mind. This is specifically for. We have a couple OBS guidelines that we use for streaming the community meeting,
Nice.
but like I just took a look at it and it is
Updated.
pretty light. I will still drop a link in the docs to it.
The only thing I really want to put there in the guide is make sure that when you install OBS, after installation, you have to go to preferences and choose to save video files as MP4, because by default it's MKV and it's not good for YouTube. So you need to change it to MP4. That's the only change we actually have to make sure, because the rest is more or less you can figure out. You can find it on YouTube, all the tutorials. It's the help. It's pretty easy to use. I don't know, basic stuff. The MP4 thing was not obvious for me, at least. Yes.
And so she said, private repo will chat with team tomorrow to see if okay.
Okay, that sounds good. I will take a look at. I'll review what you have there. And we'll get that in. Okay, so before Bob and I get into ideas for GSOC LFX, does anybody have anything else?
So I actually do have one other sort of like NCW sort of update. We are going to be migrating the contributor site repo from Kubernetes SIGs to Kubernetes for several different reasons. But the big one is it will be much easier to reuse our localization teams. So it will honestly be pretty much ready to go once we have the sort of NCW content merged into there. Multiple people have shown interest in both localizing the contributor site in general, but more specifically the new contributor workshop content.
Okay. Okay. That's fine. I was just looking at that issue. So
yeah.
The one of because one of the other problems that we're up against, and I put in that issue, which is really for the content meeting, is just that right now you can't find the contributor guide if you didn't already know about it.
Yeah, I know it's an SEO problem, and I'm not like from outside of linking it to as many places as possible. I haven't found any other good, like better ways to surface it.
That's number one, is linking it to as many places as possible.
Yeah.
Is
once we get it up on the actual like Kubernetes IO website, it should be a bit easier. From there, it is, I think, just mostly updating a lot of our documentation to try and get those SEO numbers up.
So yeah, but I'm actually even less concerned about search engines than I am about, hey, I'm at kubernetes.io. How do I get to the contributor guide from here?
Yeah.
So, and I think, if we fix that thing, the SEO will also get better as a side effect.
Yep.
So okay. But good to know. So at some point that's going to move, and we'll need to update our .git/config files.
I'm hoping it will be like early February.
Okay. Okay.
There will be a bit of downtime with that move, but that's kind of expected.
Yeah.
I'll still like do it on the weekend or something and try and minimize.
Okay.
Minimize downs.
I don't know that repository has exactly had a snowstorm of contributions.
No, it's pretty much just been me.
I think being down for a day is really not going to cause any screaming.
Yeah.
So okay. So So that's everything. So then let's talk about ideas for who to reach out to for student internships for a lump sum.
Okay. One thing that sort of came up recently, and this is the fact that, you know, the Ingress Engine X doesn't currently have a maintainer.
Mhm.
And so this would be an opportunity if someone, you know, potentially wanted to work with, like, we'd have to find someone first to be willing to like mentor, but it could eventually lead, if someone is interested, into actually being an owner within the project and helping continue to sustain the project.
Okay. Yeah, that feels more like an LFX thing than a GSOC thing.
Yeah.
Um,
This is a small one. I've tossed a help wanted on it already. This would be another like LFX one probably, but we do need to have an app. Like right now, the contributor site ingests everything, and it does a lot of bash and regexes to fix links. And we have an open issue about writing a Golang sort of version of that that actually uses the Markdown library to like find all the links and just change the appropriate things. And this is a blocker for us before we start bringing in more code focused content, where the problem is like some stuff in Golang looks like Markdown links.
yeah.
So
Sorry, I was wondering if you got the link to that that issue.
yep, one sec.
Okay, put it in the notes too.
Yep, I will paste it right in the notes.
Okay. I mean, I have to ask the obvious, which is, why don't we just move all the content to a Hugo repo?
That is something I have been fighting for, but there's a lot of politics around relocating stuff out of the community repo to someplace else. We can have a longer conversation about that when it's not being recorded.
Okay. The So okay.
I know SIG Release also plans to move a good chunk of their content directly to the contributor site, like all their the release team documentation. And I dropped a link to the issue in in chat, and
okay. Yes, that's a couple of things. One of the things I always end up coming back to is visualization stuff for test infra. I mean, particularly the PR folks identified a bunch of areas where we really need better visualizations for flaking, but I'm reluctant to put an intern on that because anything involving our test infra is so complicated.
Yeah, there's at least half the time would be spent just getting, honestly, probably more than half the time would be spent just getting up to speed on it. That could actually be a better GSOC one, since we would probably have them for a little bit more time. The one other potential idea would be the KEP cuddle and KEP val and some of the KEP work that's going on right now, especially as we already have like good design docs fleshed out. The one problem with, you know, KEP CTL and all that is there, at least right now, there's a fair amount of interest in pushing it forward now. So that might get done before.
Yeah. Well, but there's the other end of things, which is having web pages for KEPs.
Yeah.
And as far as I know,
that should not be too bad.
Yeah, well, I was
Once
gonna say,
all
as far as I know, nobody's working on that. So
the reason why it's not being worked on is that we don't have all the kept metadata in place yet. Like there's a bunch of PRs in flight right now. Well, there's a good chunk have been done, but a lot of keps are still lacking the metadata needed to render them. But once that's done, it honestly will not be too bad to basically produce a, JSON blob of all the kept metadata to render them out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like I will say, the keps themselves and presenting them via like Hugo does not work well, at least in its current form, because Hugo is a bit more strict on markdown rendering than GitHub is.
yeah.
This would be if we did have that Golang markdown render thing for the contributor site. That would work well for this too, because it could use the same markdown library that Hugo does. So that could actually be sort of, two birds with one stone.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you remember, because this came after my last cycle of admitting GSOC. So I understand that GSOC now permits interns on support projects. Is that correct? Because they used to have a hard line that you had to work on core code.
I'm pretty sure that it would work on ancillary projects, at least for Kubernetes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
I'd have to get clarification. I could look around like internally a bit, but
okay, that's definitely something. Okay, and then we should also take it to the leads, because you never know who has something.
Yep.
And obviously the key is that you need a mentor. You don't need just a project.
Yeah.
Because like one of the questions about if we do Ingress and GINX, who's going to be the mentor for that?
Yep. That would definitely be a bit of a problem right now.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure collectively that could find someone that'd be willing to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe. Might be able to put somebody. Gosh, do we use it for anything? I don't know. Yeah, because it's always a problem with saying, okay, well, this doesn't have a maintainer, but then you start saying, well, so who's going to mentor it then if nobody's maintaining it?
Well, that was recent, and there are still other people that are familiar with it. They are time constrained, which is part of the problem.
Yeah. Okay.
They might be, more willing to sort of mentor in that role if the mentee sort of went in with the knowledge that they would it would be a commitment beyond the internship.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I was thinking about it more for LFX than for GSOC.
Yeah.
Because the assumption with GSOC is that 3/4 of your interns you'll never see again after the end of the program.
Yeah.
So
we do still need we could still really use someone with experience in tech writing going over the contributor guide.
Yeah, that would be Summer of Docs if we're doing it with Google.
Yeah. And that is changing dramatically than what it was this year or last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how much I can say publicly yet, though.
Okay. Keep in mind, we can actually pay for doc stuff with the LFX money as well.
Okay.
So that is definitely not out of the question. I will say, however, having just gone through trying to hire a documentation contractor, we might have a problem of a lack of qualified candidates.
Honestly, maybe Eric would know. Eric and Joel.
Mm-hmm.
outside of, if we just wanted to, this wouldn't be mentorship. If we wanted to pay someone to get it done, they could also potentially take that on.
Yeah. And I don't know if they're still doing that, because when they started this with Community Bridge, it was kind of a mixed program of both student internships and
Contract
and
work.
contract and basic contract work.
Yeah.
And I think they're getting out of the contract work thing. Among other things, I think there's some liability issues.
Yeah.
But I'm not absolutely sure of that. I mean, a lot of our problems with the software for the program was that it was designed for the contract work thing.
Yeah.
And not designed for an open student internship. So but regardless, if we can find somebody, we could, that could potentially be done that way as well.
Another could talk to Alana, but there's a instrumentation project that is not necessarily floundering, but it was the metrics progression, moving them from like alpha to stable and all that. This is actually something I discovered recently, where all our metrics are currently flagged as alpha, and they have been for over a year, and there hasn't been progress made on that. This is mostly as things have been people have been retasked.
Okay.
But
we'd need a new mentor for that, because Alana's on SIG node now and she's not doing instrumentation anymore.
Yep.
So
I think collectively we could probably find someone that would help with that.
Yeah, that would be nice, because that would have the appeal of actually working on Kubernetes core code, which not a lot of the opportunities we put out have.
And it would drive a feature to completion.
Yeah.
Like that's definitely a feather in someone's cap that they could put on a resume.
Okay.
They would definitely need to come in with good Golang experience, though.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things that we did struggle with for the for Electo, which is why it ended up getting written in Python. Because we realized that our candidates who wanted to do it in Go were looking at their Go knowledge was very
basic,
rudimentary, and with the schedule that we had, teaching them from scratch was not going to be able to be feasible.
Honestly, especially for that, Python's fine.
Yeah. Well, no, and that was the thing, is I said there's no reason not to do it in Python. Lots of projects, particularly given it's such a minimal thing. And well, I like Go a lot for infrastructure. It's not necessarily the ideal language for writing web applications in.
It's okay for web backends.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah. The so I mean, I'd have at least considered PHP if somebody made a really good proposal, but no one did. No. You can always find volunteers to maintain PHP stuff. Everybody knows a little. Everybody knows enough to get by.
Yeah. But it also means that it'd be exploited next week, and then the following week, and then
I wouldn't call I wouldn't call Electo exactly hardened. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of exploit surface because it's so simple.
Yeah.
But it's also counting on being semi-obscure.
As long as it doesn't, somehow dump the OAuth stuff in clear text, it should be okay.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, is that it doesn't. The only data it stores itself are the ballots, and those are anonymized. So I'm not sure what somebody could get out of it. I suppose they could inject malicious code and have the malicious code try to grab people's auth credentials, but would that even work?
Not really, because it's bound to the domain. I could
Yeah.
see people just trying to futz with election results, but that would be it.
That would be kind of obvious, honestly. and also hard to do because there's no UI to mess with the election results. And if you were trying to add unauthorized voters, those would have to go into the tied GitHub repo, which would then again make it kind of obvious. Anyway, if somebody starts trying to use Electo for actual like public government elections, then maybe I'll be worried about security.
Yeah.
But as long as projects are using it for the steering committee,
Not worried.
exactly, a lot of motivation there. Okay, so that's actually a nice bunch of ideas, and then if we throw things out to the leads, we might get more. Our problem is going to be with COVID and everything else, people are still distracted and are still unwilling to take on extra tasks. So getting mentors could be hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually when we solicit people, we need to really push to get names of mentors, not just potential projects.
I completely agree.
I almost care more about getting the name of the mentor. Like if they say, hey, I'm willing to mentor for the SIG. I don't have a project in front of me right now, but I have time available. I would take that over. We have this idea for a project, but we're not sure who's going to admin it. Because if we have a mentor available, we can come up with something.
Yep.
For the mentee to do. Okay. So I'll push that out on leads list. When is the next leads meeting?
We just had one, so it would be like the second week of February.
Okay, and that would be too late for GSOC.
Yeah, I would go ahead and send it out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and the last meeting had a full agenda, so I wouldn't have wanted to be on it anyway.
Yeah. Each meeting ran very long too.
Yeah.
Like, the second one was an hour longer.
Yes. So. Okay. So I'll put that out there, see if anybody has anything. One of the other things to think about, and if you come up with this later, ping me on channel or whatever it is closely associated projects with Kubernetes that we could reach out to. Things like CSI drivers, for example.
Yep.
Because I think it should be legit, like particularly for GSOC, for those to work under our umbrella. But I just don't know much about the team behind any of those things.
Yeah. Honestly, like storage, if we ping storage, they would probably be able to chime in with any potential ideas. And this is also honestly potentially where, a vendor could make it a priority too and loop the person in.
Which is fine.
Yep.
Right? As long as they're working on open source code, that's fine. Yep.
I'm just thinking because like all the CSIs are for proprietary things.
Yeah. No, there are some things like VMware storage stuff that probably wouldn't qualify for GSOC for that reason. But there's plenty of other things that are at least, that are open source enough. And for that matter, the same thing would apply to CNI. So just need to make it clear in the call out to leads that this also applies to our sort of family of closely tied accessory projects.
Yep.
And if it means that some vendor gives an engineer, 3 hours a week to be a mentor because it's their product, then that works.
Yep.
Okay. And if we want to put limitations on what's an accessory project, I guess we'll burn that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah, and if it doesn't count for GSOC, we might be able to get under LFX.
Yeah. Yeah, and GSOC is fine taking a whole satellite because, if you think about it for GSOC, for example, the Apache Foundation is a single entity within GSOC.
Yep. And technically the CNCF is too.
So, yeah, so I guess anything that's a CNCF project could be legit. And it's just within the CNCF. There are very few projects that have sufficient community management to admin.
Yep.
So I don't mind doing this under the Kubernetes umbrella. Okay.
I think that's mostly it for at least ideas at this point
Yeah.
in time.
Yep.
So I can.
Yep. And hey, Stephen, if y'all have any students down where you are, it's not an unusual thing for these internships to link up both the student and the mentor through the same open source organization.
Yep. I have checked with some of the others, but part of the problem is potentially time zone differences for anyone locally here.
Well, the bigger problem is year differences for Google Summer of Code, because that's the middle of the term for you guys.
Yeah.
When does that normally start?
It normally, for the intern, it normally starts, I think, at the beginning of June and ends in mid-August.
So riding Q2, Q3.
That's starting
Yeah.
to cross over to
Yeah, but
heavy end of the semesters, ready for when they're completing whatever year they're on.
Yep. But LFX is a quarterly program, and so as a result, it doesn't have the same timing problem. So, if you think of something, where, because I know that you guys do have some affiliation with students. I'm saying that it is okay to push somebody forward for this, even if you are already working with them.
Cool.
So, okay, anything else?
Nothing that at least should be recorded.
Okay.
How about you?
That's it. Okay, well, thanks everybody. At some point we will change the schedule for these, because the talk was having a dedicated mentoring meeting on the other side of the clock, and then merging this with the APAC ContribEx meeting. But nobody's gotten the schedule for that together yet. So
Yeah, honestly, I think at this point I will just do it.
Yeah. Okay. But we'll notify everybody if we do change the schedule. Otherwise, expect to have this again in 2 weeks.
Okay. I'll
Alright.
go ahead.
Bye.
Later.
Thank you, folks. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.